What up? This is Rama Screen covering movies, TV, and entertainment, and here's my review of Netflix's new documentary series, Turning Point: 9/11 and the War on Terror. Hey, before you watch my review, please subscribe to my channel, press that like button, and ring that bell so you can get notified whenever I post new videos. And if you'd like to help support this channel, please do so at patreon.com/ramascreen. That's patreon.com/ramascreen. Let's rock this. Okay, it's safe to assume that because of the subject matter of this docu, YouTube will probably demonetize this video review, or at least slap it with only limited ads, because anything that closely resembles tragedy or disaster will immediately raise a red flag, and YouTube will get their panties in a bunch just like that. Now, I do not recommend watching this docu-series if you don't want to feel depressed, because trust me, it can really get to you. It's emotionally devastating. Especially the first episode, it's like there's no filter whatsoever. I kid you not, they even show enhanced images of actual human beings jumping off of the burning World Trade Center. I mean, the compilation of the photos and videos put together by this documentary is quite remarkable. So this is definitely not for the faint of heart. Some audiences will consider Turning Point a blatant exploitation of 9/11, while some might consider it a retrospective comprehensive overview. But my question is, how factually objective is the information laid out in this docu-series? And is there a personal responsibility taken by some of the talking heads featured? And the answer to that is a mixed bag. The September 11, 2001 attacks changed the world in ways that have taken decades to understand. 20 years later, following the longest war in American history, and with Afghanistan once again under Taliban control, Turning Point: 9/11 and the War on Terror tries to cover some of the long unanswered questions. The series features a wide range of interviewees, including officials from multiple US presidential administrations, former CIA members, and the US military veterans, as well as Afghanistan National Army soldiers, Taliban commanders, members of the Afghan governments, Afghan warlords, and Afghan civilians, many whom had never spoken on camera before. It also spotlights the voices of survivors of the attacks themselves. The 5-part docuseries is an illuminating chronicle of the 9/11 attacks and how those events changed the course of history. I think from the historical context, or from the angle of history lesson, there is a benefit to watching this docuseries, especially for tweens or 20-year-olds who barely existed when this tragedy happened. With the internet and social media's algorithm unfortunately rewarding more views to misleading and downright deceptive conspiracy theories, well, something like Turning Point is actually a good thing in my opinion, because it tells you the timeline of events accurately, so that part is not open to interpretation, and that includes the roles that some of the pivotal public figures played in said timeline. But as I implied earlier, this is a docu that doesn't hold back. The things that you'll see in these episodes can get really disturbing. You'd have to have a thick skin or otherwise stay away from Turning Point. Think of it like an encyclopedia, where some of the chapters are dedicated to just these past 2 decades. The last half of the final episode feels a bit rushed, because it's clear that they wanted to include our recent exit from Afghanistan. So they wanted to get this docu out in time for the 20th anniversary of 9/11, but they didn't want to be perceived like they were leaving out some crucial relevant details. To tell you the truth, this docu makes me angry. I mean, kudos, they managed to get some of the people that were in power at that time to speak their side of the story, but here they're not being pressed for accountability. Many of them would not admit their blunders and many of them would try to rationalize their decisions. So in terms of the interviews here, don't expect that journalism standard of holding powerful people's feet to the fire. I'm also angry because this war should not have lasted as long as it did. And I'm angry because 20 years ago, the people who were supposed to protect us fell asleep at the wheel, or they were too busy playing pissing contests. But I do hope that this docu will open people's eyes to the fact that in order to understand something, sometimes you'd have to go back, way back, to what initially leads up to that, as opposed to just going with knee-jerk reaction. Listen, history is nuanced, with domino effects involved and plenty of blame to go around. So that's what we need to keep in the back of our heads as we revisit this memory year after year after year. We shall never forget 9/11, and we shall continue to honor the fallen. But more importantly, we have to learn from it and its 20-year aftermath, because not learning from it will be the biggest, worst mistake we're ever gonna make.